Hi everyone, Bethany Boitano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Spoon album, Hot Thoughts. Austin, Texas rock band Spoon are back with a new album, with their 9th album in fact. Spoon has never been one of my favorite rock bands of all time, but yet I've also never hated one of their records either, because I think they're easily one of the most consistent bands working today. There might not be anything terribly original about Spoon's sound, sure, but I usually come away from a Spoon album relatively impressed with the band's exuberant performances and emphasis on quality grooves, good songwriting fundamentals, and that's mostly the case on this new album over here too. The group continues to dish out what has made them one of the longest running groups in indie. But there are a few massive, surprising, and kind of experimental exceptions in the track listing here. The song Pink Up I'm not really crazy about, but the very laid back, chilled out, super low-key vibe of this song was kind of unexpected. This track is very moody, it's very nocturnal, there are loads of strange vocal harmonies on this thing, some distant pianos, what sounds like vibraphone 2, a subtle beat, some dubby effects. I never expected the band to go this quiet or this groovy, especially for 6 minutes straight. And the song I Ain't the One is this very skeletal, stripped-back ballad that's built mostly off of these really bright, shrill, electric piano chords, and then Britt Daniels' vocals. Eventually the song fills out with some drum machine beats and some larger instrumentation. I think the climax could have been a little more visceral, but I still think it's a decent tune and a good attempt at Spoon trying something different. But the closing track, Us, on this thing really takes the cake for surprises, because it's essentially this drony, ambient jazz piece? Not sure. There's really no verse or chorus or vocals on this track to speak of. It's mostly horn. And probably the most abstract thing the band has ever laid to record. Doesn't necessarily mean it's a good or compelling moment on the album, but definitely unexpected. It's like suddenly being teleported into this spacey psychedelic Sun Ra jazz jam. Hope you brought your fucking LSD. Maybe this track would have made more sense next to Whisper, I'll Listen to Hear It, or Do I Have to Talk You Into It, which are a little more synth driven and similarly spacey, but maybe not as spacey as Us. I appreciate the band is trying some new stuff, but it doesn't always go over well, I guess. But for the rest of this record, Spoon is giving us that sharp, catchy, first-class, part rugged, part slick pop rock that they're so good at recording. The song Hot Thoughts, I love this track. The slowly building tension on this track, the sad descending chord progression are great, but don't take away from just how snappy and awesome and visceral the rhythm section is. I also love the subtle bits of instrumentation thrown into the mix that aren't all that clear right from the get-go, like the jingle jangle chimes that kind of ring along with the guitars. The song is so depressing, but it's also so danceable. Can I sit next to you? Is going to be a great Spoon track right from the moment you hear that slick little guitar lick and the hand claps bouncing off of it. The grand string section thrown later into the track to help it out is really great. And the song Shotgun is the most driving, gritty, snappy track on the entire record. The bass line drum combo on this thing is killer. Says, let's have an epic dance battle, but then the roaring guitar riff over this says, let's drive 90 miles an hour down Route 66 at high noon with the top down. I also appreciate the cool down moment on this track where you have like some weird, trippy, dueling guitars and synths for a little instrumental bridge. Actually, I would cite this as one of the moments on this album where Spoon are taking some of the more experimental aspects of this LP and they are incorporating them tastefully into their usual sound, their usual repertoire. They're not just going off into Spaceland. The only straightforward spot on this record that really underwhelmed me was the track First Caress. Sadly, not a response to the beloved Misfits song Last Caress. It just kind of had a really bland, forgettable disco beat to it, and Britt Daniels is really not at his lyrical best on this song either. From Spoon, it's a good album. It's a very good album, as usual, but it's not like an amazing album. It's not mind-blowing, it's just relatively solid. Those core, catchy, indie rock singles on this track go over really well. They sound fantastic. But the Achilles heel of this album is not like past Spoon records. It's not a lack of ideas, redundant tracks, a lack of ambition. No, it's actually Spoon taking some risks and getting experimental and getting kind of weird. The problem is that not every experiment goes over well or fits into the flow of the album, complements the band's usual sound. And not to say that I think the band should abandon completely what they're doing on this record, completely the opposite, because there are at least a couple tracks on here where I think it goes over really well. I'm just kind of waiting for the album where Spoon actually channels these experimental desires a little more tastefully, a little more cohesively, in a way that's a bit more gratifying. But that's all. You know, I think this is a good album. Perfectly good album. No reason to completely ignore this album. A lot of great things about it. Feeling a decent 7 on this thing. Transition. Have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best. You're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe. And please don't die. Just stay alive so you can keep watching the reviews. You're the best. Anthony Fantano, Spoon, Hot Thoughts, other videos next to my head you should check out. Subscribe to the channel, official website, forever.